Most of the people in my audience are familiar with Jordan Chariton, one of the many independent reporters who went to Standing Rock several times during the whole North Dakota Access Pipeline saga. He has been one of the leading investigative journalists covering and reporting what's going on in Flint, Michigan, with the lead poisoning and the corruption of the government and the brazen cover-ups. He's done great on-the-ground reporting in regards to workers' unionization efforts and workers' strikes, and during both primaries, Jordan Chariton, one of the few lefty investigative journalists who actually was digging into the chicanery and the funny business and the cheating that the Democratic establishment were doing during the primaries to cheat the left and to rig the primaries in favor of their establishment favored candidates. Jordan Chariton has done investigative journalism on stories like that, all kinds of things like that. And I don't agree with everything Jordan Chariton has done and said. I don't agree with all his positions. One of the most recent controversies on the left was when he was kind of calling for the Convo Couch to get their channel taken down because they were reporting on Stop the Steal and other election integrity stories. And he was basically calling for them to be censored for pushing conspiracy theories or something like that. And I strongly disagree with that. But that said, I think he's an important voice to have in left new media, even though I don't agree with him on everything, because you don't agree with anybody on everything. He's been critical of Bernie Sanders and all of these elected progressives over the last year and how they keep failing to meet the moment time and time again, forced to vote, rolling over for Pelosi. He criticizes them for those things, and he's big on the left being more aggressive and more adversarial towards the Democratic leadership, towards the Democratic establishment. And he's big on the necessity of direct actions and public pressure campaigns and strikes and general strikes so that we can pressure politicians into doing their job. He has voiced support for those things in the past. But there is this disagreement that I keep having with the commentary that he gives on all those different topics. And I haven't really talked about it on the show because I don't want to seem like I'm nitpicking and things like that. Because like I said, he's on a lot of issues, he gets where the left is at, and he gets the urgency of the moment, and he gets that the elected progressives are failing to meet the moment. But the disagreement that I have with him is where he, and I think this term is overused, but it applies in this criticism of Jordan Chariton, which is there's a lot of gatekeeping of what is acceptable and a rational position for people on the left to take. A lot of times on these important issues, he acts like the position that he takes personally is the most left position that any reasonable person can take. And if you go any further than Jordan Chariton on that specific issue, well, you're just crazy, you're irrational, you're not thinking straight, and nobody should take you seriously. Some examples of that is the critique of the Democratic Party. Jordan Chariton, he's not going to mince words about the Democrats. He acknowledges that they're insanely corrupt and they're part of this one party cabal, and all they care about is serving the interests of their corporate donors and enriching themselves. He'll admit this, but then he'll draw the line and he says, "Oh, but I'm not going to lead the Democratic Party. I think it's the only rational position is to stay in the Democratic Party and to criticize the Democratic Party. And anybody who wants to start a third party, oh, well, you guys are just crazy. You're not thinking straight. You're irrational. You're being childish, and it's not going to work." And again, like you said, the only reason, the furthest left position that a rational person could take is this position that I, Jordan Chariton, have staked out, which is let's criticize the Democratic Party, but you can't lead the Democratic Party. Like I said, that's where that gatekeeping comes in. We also see this in the criticisms of these elected progressives, these Justice Democrats, Bernie Sanders. He will admit that, yeah, they're fucking up. Yeah, they should have done force of vote. Yeah, they should have gotten actual concessions in the CARES Act. Yeah, they should have gotten something for shilling for Joe Biden, tangible policy, substantive concessions for shilling for Joe Biden. Yeah, they failed to meet the moment. He'll admit all those things. But again, he draws that line in the sand, and then he says, but it's fair game for anybody on the left to criticize them for all these things. But the second anybody goes further than where I am specifically and starts saying they're sellouts and they're frauds, oh, well, now you guys are just being irrational, you're being unreasonable, you're being childish, you're not thinking straight, and nobody should take you seriously. And like I said, I've noticed this for a while with Jordan Chariton, but I haven't gotten into it. I haven't done an entire video about it because I just didn't want to come across like I'm nitpicking and like looking for beef, looking for drama and things like that. But this has become something that is very recurrent in his content and in his commentary. And it's getting frustrating because all the people who are saying those things, who are going past the line that he has drawn in the sand and is planted his flag on, anybody who goes past that, like myself or like Jimmy Doyle, people at Convo Couch, Nico House, Frank Analysis, Misty and Jesse at Facts on the Ground and Slow News Day, when people go beyond where Jordan Chariton is, we provide an explanation. When we say they're the fraud squad, when we say they're sellouts, we will give you a detailed, in-depth explanation of how we got to that point and what information we've compiled and all the things that they've done since they've been public figures that have led us to this position where we're at, where we've come to criticize them so harshly. We will give you all of that in our explanations of why we say those things about Bernie Sanders and AOC and Ilhan Omar and the rest of the Justice Democrats. But it's like he refuses to ever acknowledge our arguments and engage with those arguments in a good faith way, and he just strawmans us. And honestly, it's kind of offensive because he pretends like everybody who says these things about AOC or Bernie Sanders, they're just doing it for clicks. They're doing it for money and basically calling us grifters and saying that we don't even believe these things. We're just saying it because it's popular. And like I said, that's incredibly offensive. And it's annoying because, like I said, we all have made very clear and consistent arguments that are really kind of irrefutable as to why we are so critical of these elected progressives. And he still won't engage in them, and he just keeps strawmanning us and smearing us in defense of politicians. And again, it's a fine line to draw because he is critical of them, but he comes out like a fucking attack dog off his leash anytime anybody says anything that goes beyond what Jordan Chariton agrees or has said is an acceptable criticism. So I'm going to break down some clips from videos that Jordan Chariton has posted on his channel Status Quo that highlight this point that I'm trying to make. But first, you all already know the deal. If you're able to contribute to the show financially, I have the links to Patreon and the About page of the YouTube channel. I also have a link to PayPal in the About page of the YouTube channel if you feel more comfortable doing a one-time contribution. And I'm also on Odyssey if you want to go follow the channel there where I post content. You can leave tips and things like that. And the link to my Twitter, the show's Twitter, is in the About page of the YouTube channel too. And again, I'm incredibly grateful for all the people in the audience who continue to watch the content, continue to comment, who continue to share it, and all the people who've been able to contribute financially to the show. Everybody who contributes in whatever way you can, it means a lot, and you guys have helped the show get to where it is and be as successful as it's been over the last 2 years. So incredibly grateful for you all. Now I'm gonna show you I have a couple different clips that I'm gonna show you from Jordan Chariton. Here's the first one. I'm gonna come back and break it down.
With people whose new political jihad seems to be Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is not the ultimate problem. And what the oligarchy wants to do, what the plutocrats thrive on, what corporations thrive on, what intelligence operations thrive on, is divide and conquer. They want to divide the left. And certain people are helping that cause by laser focusing on Bernie Sanders as the problem. Was he weak during the campaign? Yes. I said it during the campaign. I criticized him during the campaign. Is he messing up now? Yes. But you know what? Let's take a pause from all this high school and middle school foolishness. Oh, he's a sellout. He's a coward. Yeah? Let me ask you a question. These people saying this, what the have they done that's so brave? Have they done so much in their lives? Did these people calling Bernie Sanders a coward on Twitter and on YouTube, did they force Jeff Bezos to give Amazon workers a $15 minimum wage? Was that them? These brave souls who were so wise and brave and better than Bernie Sanders? Are they responsible for Disney workers getting $15 minimum wage? Did they hold up Obamacare and hold it hostage and would have taken it down if not basically forced Obama to put $9 billion in there for community health centers? Bernie Sanders got $9 billion into Obamacare. But all these people who are pissed off and angry, rightfully so right now, are listening to people on YouTube and Twitter, and there's a lot of hosts talking like this who, oh, he's a coward, he's a sellout. Yeah? What the have you done? There's nothing wrong with criticizing Bernie Sanders. He's not above criticism, and I do criticism. But spare me to the people who have been on the bandwagon for Bernie. Oh, they've enjoyed the bandwagon. Bernie's gotten them a lot of quick clicks and Twitter follows, whatever. But the minute he does some things you don't like, all of a sudden, Bernie Sanders is a worse threat than Donald Trump. Oh my God, I'm listening to some people go on and go on. It's deranged. So he endorsed Joe Biden. Guess what? He said from the beginning he was going to endorse the Democratic nominee. You don't like it? Okay, but that's what he said he was going to do. It's not a surprise. I don't like how he did it. I don't think he should have done it when he did it. I think he should have actually got something for it. I think he should have organized his massive email list and organized the troops that he has for things like a rent strike, a mortgage strike, a general strike. Now's the time to do that. But just because somebody isn't doing exactly what you want 100% of the time doesn't make them a sellout. And frankly, the people doing that are frankly radicalizing impressionable minds, are irresponsible. And I'd like to know from these people tweeting this, I'd like to know from hosts saying this, what the have you done in your life?
All right, so there were several terrible arguments that Jordan was making in that rant there. Let me get to the first one, which is that there are a lot of people on the left criticizing. And by the way, let me give the context that video was posted about 8 months ago on Jordan's channel, but he has continued to make a lot of the same arguments to this day. So, and this was one of the worst offenses that I could remember. So that's why I clipped this specific one out. But let me get to the arguments that, okay, a lot of people on the left are criticizing Bernie Sanders and they're acting like he's the worst thing in the country and whatever he was saying, worse than Trump. I think that's a straw man. I think that's disingenuous. Nobody was saying Bernie Sanders is specifically, his policy positions are worse than Trump. What a lot of people like myself have the conclusion that I've come to over the last year, after seeing everything that I've seen, after I've seen these people who claim to support left policies and buckle every single time, what I learned, what is the conclusion that I've come away with, and it's affected how I do content on my show, it is, and the message that I'm trying to portray on the show, it's that even the people that you think are fighting for you, they're not. They're actually just kind of sheepdogging you and getting you to accept neoliberalism and incrementalism. And when you think about it, that is incredibly insidious, and it kneecaps the left movement from making any real advancements, because you follow these people and you think that's what real leftism is. Oh, caving to the corporate Democrats, caving to the neoliberals, getting nothing in return. That's what real leftism is. And we should all follow Bernie Sanders' lead, and we should all do what Bernie Sanders and AOC is doing. That's a problem. And again, I think that derails the movement, and it takes us from what we should be doing, which is real public pressure, real direct action, strikes, and things like that, to pressure politicians. And we need to be way more aggressive. And with people like Bernie Sanders, they're kind of just teaching the left to just roll over. And I think that's a problem. And I think that needs to be addressed among the left. And we do need to have a conversation about that. And that's why I specifically, I am more critical of these elected progressives, because we already know the Republicans are bad. We already know the corporate Democrats are bad. But they aren't the ones driving the boat in terms of the left movement. It's these people. And if these people are steering us in the wrong direction, we need to have a conversation about it. So that's why people on the left like myself, and I will speak for myself here, am more critical and do more content criticizing these elected progressives than I do criticizing Donald Trump, than I do criticizing Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi. And then another really bad point that he makes immediately after, because he's a machine gun of shitty arguments here, and you're so floored by the next shitty argument he makes, you don't even have time to acknowledge how shitty the first point he made was. So then immediately after that, he says, oh, all those people who are overly criticizing Bernie Sanders, they're doing the work of the establishment. They're doing the work of the corporations. They're doing the work of the national security apparatus, because what they want more than anything is for the left to be divided. And those people who are being overly critical and calling Bernie Sanders a sellout, calling AOC a sellout, those people are doing the work of the establishment, and they're being divisive. So this is an argument that he keeps making, and I've seen Kyle Kalinske make this argument too. And it's weird to me, because they sound exactly like corporate Democrats whenever Bernie Sanders supporters were criticizing them for taking donations from corporations like the for-profit private health insurance industries or big pharma, and then doing policies that those specific industries want. When the people on the left were saying, hey, that's kind of corrupt, and that's the reason why we don't have single payer in this country, because all the politicians are beholden to their corporate donors, so maybe we shouldn't do that. All of the Democratic apparatchiks and the political operatives, they would come out, and what would they say? Oh, we're being divisive. We're going to cost the Democrats the election because they're trying to make the Democrats look bad, and you're going to make Trump win. But again, it's not about, and this is like this whole unity politics. All that does is try to silence dissent and anybody who doesn't agree with whatever the official narrative is. But the thing about that is, if we're going to actually change things, or if we're going to actually go in a different direction, we need to point out the parts where we disagree. So this whole idea that we can't disagree, and if you do disagree, we're going to label you as divisive, and we're going to just dismiss any criticism you have out of hand without even acknowledging the merits of your argument. That's what corporate Democrats do. But it's bizarre that people on the left have taken that same position when it's, again, lefties criticizing politicians for failing to meet the moment. Like I said, Jordan Chariton, he will criticize Bernie Sanders and AOC for forced to vote. He will criticize the Justice Democrats for voting for Nancy Pelosi. But the second anybody says we're done with them and they're sellouts and we want nothing to do with them, oh, he'll drag out the divisive argument. You guys are just being divisive. You're stirring the pot. You're shit stirrers, and you're the reason why we can't have good things, because people like you. And another thing I want to get to or point out is how he kind of downplays the severity of the offenses. And this is something that I found really annoying, because they'd be like, oh yeah, he's just, and again, another straw man argument. Oh, he's not doing everything you want, so you call him a sellout, so that means you're being ridiculous. No. Don't try to be Weasley like that. It's not that, oh, I think we should have a $2,500 UBI a month, and Bernie thinks we should have $2,000 UBI a month, and we disagree on that. Therefore, I'm gonna call Bernie Sanders a sellout because, quote, I'm not getting everything I want. Don't try to minimize it and downplay it and act like, oh, these are just small, minor disagreements. Every single one of these offenses that I've been railing against them for over the last year, these are all career-defining moments in politics. And the fact that they've all happened to converge in this specific time frame of the last year doesn't take away from how detrimental and how monumental each of these decisions were and how defining each of these decisions were. Before I go any further, let me again read the definition, like I've done many times on the show before. Read the definition of what a sellout actually is, because people have this misconception that being a sellout only means if you give me this amount of cash, then I will do exactly what you want, and that's like the only definition of selling out. No, there is a specific definition that I'm going by, and I'm assuming many of the people who call Bernie Sanders and AOC and the rest of them sellouts are going by, and I'll read you the definition. Quote, a betrayal of one's principles for reasons of expediency. That's exactly what Bernie Sanders and all of them have done over the last year. They've betrayed their principles for political expediency, for their own convenience of not wanting to rock the boat and piss off their colleagues in the Democratic Party. So, by definition, they are sellouts. They aren't fighting for what they should be fighting for. They aren't fighting for what they say they believe in because they want to take the path of least resistance. So that's why we call them sellouts. And then, like I said, the different offenses, they're all disqualifying by themselves. At the beginning of the worst emergency in U.S. history, and Bernie Sanders claims to be representing an entirely different way of politics from the status quo. And Joe Biden, he's in the race, and it's just him and Joe Biden who's representing the status quo of business as usual and corporate power in this country. And we were at this crossroads at the beginning of this COVID emergency and the economic depression. Again, we were still in the primary. Bernie Sanders could have seen the necessity of this moment and said, wow, I really have to stop. I have to take the gloves off with Joe Biden. I have to really let the public know what's at stake, and that if we go the direction of Joe Biden, we're all fucked. He could have done that. He didn't do that. Instead, he rolled over and folded for Joe Biden and put up no resistance. The second it got hard for him, he just kind of resigned. He's like, well, even though more than half the states didn't even vote yet, they basically stopped campaigning. And stop trying to convince people how much of an existential threat Joe Biden was. And honestly, he didn't even, the entire campaign, he wouldn't expose how much of an existential threat Joe Biden is. And again, at such a crucial moment in the left movement where these policies are more necessary than ever, for the leader of the left movement to just cave like that, that's kind of unforgivable. That's being a sellout. You go further than that. The CARES Act, biggest upward transfer of wealth in human history. $5 trillion to corporations, the largest corporations, the richest people in the country. And then nothing serious, nothing real for the rest of the country, the working class in this country. If you were lucky, you got a means-tested $1,200 check. If you were lucky, you qualified for unemployment. Millions of people didn't get either of that. So millions of people have been left for dead in the middle of this emergency. And it all comes back to the CARES Act. And when Bernie Sanders had the chance to rail against it, hold that bill up, do a public pressure campaign to force Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi to put UBI, Medicare for all, put whatever rent cancellation, mortgage cancellation into that CARES Act. When he had the chance to do that, when AOC had the chance to do that, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ro Khanna, when they all had the chance to do that, they didn't. They went along with it, the worst upward transfer of wealth in human history. So, again, you can't call yourself, keep calling yourself social democrats or democratic socialists, and then with such a defining moment in terms of the direction of economic policy in this country, you go along with some of the worst neoliberal economic policies, corporatist policies imaginable. You just vote along with that, and you still call yourself a social democrat. No, you're a corporatist, you're a neoliberal, you're a sellout. Those aren't small things. And then, of course, another 10 months letting Nancy Pelosi and the corporate Democrats do absolutely nothing to help the American people in emergency after they bail out the corporation. That's inexcusable. Inexcusable. All the millions of people of being evicted. The millions of people in food lines. Millions of people, utilities about to be cut off. You mean to tell me for 10 months you watched that happen, and you watched your leadership as well as the Republicans do nothing, and you sat there and you didn't fight for the people? Okay, you're a sellout. That, again, that's not a small thing. It's not like, oh, it's a minor disagreement. No, you're on the side of the status quo. You're on the side of the political establishment, and that side is fucking over everybody else. So, like these, and then of course the force to vote moment. AOC and the Justice Democrats had the votes to deny Nancy Pelosi the speakership. They had the votes to make policy demands like a floor vote on Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic. They had the numbers to do that, and it's not that they tried to do it and it failed. It's not like it was a uphill battle and they had to go through hell and high water to do it and it just didn't work. They just didn't even try to do that. In fact, the same people who got their start, got their popularity, talking about how existential and how critical it is that we get single payer in this country because thousands and thousands of people are dying because they can't afford basic health care. Those same people who built their careers on that, who won their elections on that, those same people turn around and will try to make an argument, yeah, it might not be the right time to have a knockdown, drag-out public fight on why we should have government healthcare in this country in the middle of a pandemic and an economic depression. Those same people were turning around trying to bullshit us and say, yeah, this isn't the right time for a floor vote on single payer. Maybe we should do that in 5 years or 10 years or when some other time when it isn't as much of a important and non-negotiable issue as it is right now in this moment. So, again, Jordan Chariton and a lot of people who are still defending them, they trying to act like these are just small things. These are just minor things. No, these were all career-defining moments. You can't keep saying, oh yeah, we're going to radically change the way things work. We're there to bust up the establishment, bust up the status quo, and we're going to actually change things. You can't keep saying that, and then every time you have the opportunity to do that, you continue the status quo and you're defending the status quo. So, like, it's not minor disagreements. You're showing who you actually are. You're showing what you're going to do as a politician. So now let me get to some of the other shitty arguments that he was making here. So he says that, oh, Bernie Sanders helped get the the Amazon workers $15 minimum wage. Oh, he helped get the Disney workers $15 minimum wage. And yeah, he put a little pressure on them. Not gonna lie about that. But it wasn't just him. It was also the workers who were on the ground protesting and striking across the country too. Let's get that out there. But also this whole argument that, oh, they did good things in the past, therefore you can never ever ever call them a sellout because they did those good things in the past, so they're always fighting for the working class. They're always fighting for poor people. Like, on its face, that makes no sense, because in order for you to be a sellout, that means at one point you were on the side of the working class. You were fighting for the working class in the poorest country. And then at one time or another, you had the realization, hey, this will be a lot easier for me, a lot smoother for me in my career if I don't buck the establishment so much, if I don't buck party leadership so much. So I won't do that. I'll go along to get along. I'll keep my head down, and I'll, just kind of do whatever they want to make them happy. Okay, at that point, you become a sellout. So it's not like you come on the scene and you're already a corporate shill. You can't sell out if you just start being a corporate shill. If your first foray into politics is being a corporate shill, then you can't really sell out and be, even more of a corporate shill? No. At one point, you have to be on the side of the regular people and then sell out for your own expediency. That's how it works. So that argument makes no sense. And then he goes to the tried and true, what have you done? And I hate this argument because you're acting like if all the millions of people out there who have a stake in politics, who have policy positions, if they don't run for office, if they don't do some big, have some big event or have some type of big win under their belt, then they have no right to criticize the people in office. And this is such a shitty, elitist argument to make. Because, one, there are barriers to entry to becoming a politician. Not very, 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 very few people in this country can decide, you know what, I'm going to take a year off of work. I'm going to just knock on some doors. I'm going to talk to some people. I'm going to run an election. And I'm going to disrupt my career. I'm going to disrupt my family. And maybe I get elected, maybe I don't. Very few people in this country even have the opportunity to do that. So, again, it's very elitist to say, why don't you run for office? Why don't you do that then? And also, some people aren't meant to be politicians. Some people, that isn't their skill set. That's not where that's just not how they feel they could be most productive. Some people aren't meant to be labor leaders and labor organizers. That's just not meant for some people. Some people just want the fucking policies. So this idea that, you're not allowed to say anything about the people in positions of power unless you are actively engaged and running for office or a massive labor or organizer or something like that. Unless you do those things, you have no right to criticize them. And then also, part of that is being in media, doing media critique and doing political analysis. That is partly being engaged. Putting your ideas out there, engaging in the argument, engaging in the discourse. That's not nothing. That does require work. That does require effort. And at the end of the day, you're informing people and providing them a perspective that they may not have had to begin with. So he's taking this argument that, people, you aren't doing anything, so you have no right to criticize. And he likes to fall back on, I go out and I talk to people. I'm on the ground and I'm doing reporting and I'm doing journalism and I'm doing investigative work and stuff like that. So if you're not doing that, if you're not running for office, if you're not a labor organizer, then by Jordan Chariton's estimate, calculations, you're not allowed to voice harsh critiques of politicians. And again, you chose to do on the ground reporting and things like that. You chose to do investigative journalism. That's what works for you. This idea that, oh, if you don't do that, then you're not a serious person, I think that's very convenient because, oh, would you look at that? Jordan Chariton is now the arbiter of serious people because he decided to be a on the ground reporting and investigative journalist. And another thing about that is, like, yeah, you talk to poor people. And I'm not downplaying that. He's done some great interviews. Some of the best interviews I've seen from reporters in a long time. So, yeah, you talk to poor people. Yeah, you've talked to people in Flint, Michigan. Yeah, you have gathered the stories. You have compiled the stories of the working class people in this country, the poor people in this country, who have been economically devastated because of the status quo. Yes, you do that, and I give him credit for that. But that doesn't replace the personal, or that doesn't override the personal experience that many of the people who are critical of AOC and critical of Bernie Sanders call them fraud. Your experience doesn't override their experience, because let me tell you, I have a lot of those people in my audience, the people who call Bernie Sanders fraud, the people who call the AOC a sellout. I have those people in my audience. I am one of those people. I know several other hosts in new media who say those and have direct experience with the worst effect, the harshest effects of the status quo. So the people, and this is something I really want him to acknowledge and address, the people who are calling them fraud squad and calling themselves, they're the people whose lives depend on these policies. They're the people who are the working poor. Those are the people who are going to be evicted. Those are the 60 million people who lost their job. Those are the millions of people who don't have health insurance in this country. And when they see that the politicians who pretended to be on our side are actually still defending the status quo and just as shitty as the other politicians, they are less forgiving. They are less likely to be able to sweep it under the rug and be like, shucks, you guys folded on force to vote. Well, we'll get them next time. No, we have because our lives are on the line here. If we don't have single payer, a lot of those people will never have health insurance. A lot of those people will never be able to afford to go to a doctor. And if they have a medical condition, it will cost them their lives. So when you see politicians running on Medicare for all, and then they have the opportunity to fight for it, to get a floor vote on it, and they don't, you're not going to be giving them the benefit of the doubt. You're not going to be saying, shucks, maybe next time. Oh, I'm going to give you a stern talking to this time, but I'll keep giving you my money. Or I'll keep volunteering for you and hope that maybe the next time you won't fold like you did this time. That is completely an unreasonable position for somebody to take if they, like I said, these policies are life or death for them, and then the politicians who are standing in the way of that, it's unreasonable to expect them to be forgiving and to be kind to them and to keep giving them the benefit of the doubt after they keep showing you that they're not fighting for you. So Jordan Chariton likes to think that he is the arbiter, he's the gatekeeper. He decides what is the furthest left position that anybody's allowed to take. And if you go further than that, if you're more critical of Bernie Sanders than he is, then you're just a lunatic, you're crazy, you're a grifter, you're doing this for money, you're doing this for clicks, as opposed to you're just somebody who this affects more than, so this is more personal to you, and you're taking a whole lot less shit. And I wouldn't even be doing this if he would just acknowledge that. But he just strawmans anybody who's more critical than he is. And let me get to the whole grifter, everybody's doing this for clicks thing. Like, that is very insulting. I find that, and I'm sure he's not talking about, he might have seen some of my videos, and I know he's seen me on Twitter, but this whole idea that we're just all doing this for clicks, again, it's very insulting to content creators, because that is the most serious charge that you can level to somebody in media or who covers news and politics, is that they don't actually mean what they say. They don't believe what they're saying, and they're just grifters who are saying what they think is popular. What they say, they're just saying what they think their audience wants to hear for money, and they don't care that that they have a negative impact. They just want clicks and they just want money. That is such a serious thing to level against people. And again, he just throws that out there for anybody who is more critical of Bernie Sanders, who's more critical of the Justice Democrats than he is. And it's like slow down, slow your fucking roll there. Because again, just acknowledge that, hey, these people have a different experience than me. They have these policies mean more to them than it might possibly mean to me, somebody who's already well off and doesn't really struggle financially. Instead of acknowledging that it's just, you all are grifters. If you go further than me, you're just doing it for clicks and you don't mean what you say. And the last point I want to make is just to Jordan Chariton and to anybody who is this viciously defending politicians. Just know that, again, you're defending politicians from harsh criticisms in a time where they have failed to meet a moment. They failed to meet the moment in such an epic way that it literally is disqualifying, and none of them should ever have public office again. That's how bad they've all failed the public at this moment. And it's not just Nancy Pelosi, it's not just Chuck Schumer. I'm talking Bernie Sanders, I'm talking about Justice Democrats, I'm talking about all of them. Because again, like Force the Vote, they had an opportunity to really fight for something here, but they didn't. So all of them should be run out of town. And if you are going to take the position that, again, and I give him credit for this, I acknowledge that he does criticize them. But if you're going to say, oh, if you don't still support these politicians, if you don't still come out and donate to them, if you don't still make volunteers for them, if you don't still sing their praises, if you don't still leap to their defense whenever, for whatever reason, then you're the problem. You're the reason why we can't get things done. No, it's not that people are calling Bernie Sanders a sellout and calling the Justice Democrats fraud squad. That's not the reason why the left has no wins. That's not the reason why we're decimated and we have no power in the political institutions in this country. That's not why. The reason why that's the case is because those same people we're criticizing, the same people who are leading the movement, the same people who have all the power to wield, the power of the grassroots movement in this country, left movement in this country, those people are declining to buck the establishment. Those people are declining to fight against the status quo. And they are trying to go along to get along. And they don't want to rock the boat, and they're busy kissing Democratic leadership's ass and hoping that they throw them some crumbs and some scraps. That's the reason why the left doesn't have shit. And it's, you flip it on its head. The second anybody is too critical of those politicians, then you more critical than you like, and you try to make it seem like it's their fault. And to Jordan Chariton and to anybody else, if you think that people criticizing politicians are more of a problem than those shitty politicians who, like I said, failed to meet this moment, you need to take a step back and reevaluate, because they deserve all the scorn. I don't even care if I think somebody goes too far. If somebody goes past me in their criticisms of Bernie Sanders and AOC, and I think that they're wrong, I'm not going to come out and do the fucking video talking about, oh, don't you say that about Bernie Sanders, don't you say that about it. Because at the end of the day, fuck them, and they're trying to fuck us all over just like the rest of the politicians. So I'm not leaping to the defense of Bernie Sanders, AOC, or any politician. So just know that. You look kind of silly. Anybody, you look kind of silly if you're out here trying to defend politicians when they have failed in the most epic way imaginable. Failed to provide healthcare in a pandemic. Failed to provide economic assistance in the worst economic crisis in history. And on top of that, they're helping corporations, giving them blank checks, helping the rich run out the back door with all the money. And then for months and months on end, they've taken multiple vacations. They've had all these endless negotiations. They had negotiations for 10 months before they decided to give people a $600 check. That's what politicians are doing right now. And then Joe Biden comes in and stacks his cabinet with corporatists and tools of the establishment, neocons and warmongers and all those things. And helping the American public right now isn't even in their priority. So if you're going to come out and defend politicians who are going along with this, you need to take a step back because you are in the wrong.